Jenny Rhodes. I'm the ag agent here in Queen Anne's County. So welcome to our Agronomy Day. We worked hard to put together a good research-based information presentations for you today. We're going to be pretty busy. As you know, we have the sponsors get up and say a few things. We couldn't do all that we do without our sponsors, so I certainly want to thank each one of them, and you'll have a chance to meet them during the day. There are a couple people that I do want to introduce. Where's Shannon Dill? There's Shannon Dill. Shannon's the ag agent in Talbot County. Nate Richard is our new ag agent in Kent County. Nate, look at him. Okay. And Emily Zobel is our new ag agent in Dorchester County. So if you're from those counties, go introduce yourself to them. Unlike Shannon and I, we grew up here, so we knew a lot of the people, but you know, they've got to take their first 6 months and get to know the farmers. Invite them out to your farms and show them what you do. So let's see, somebody else. Where's John Draper? John, stand up. John is our new farm manager. He's doing the agronomy at the Y Research. So he's doing a really good job. We're very excited to have John at the Y. Let's see. I'm sure everybody is special guests, so certainly, again, welcome. First, we're going to have a few remarks. As you know, that most of you know that Hans Schmidt is now our Assistant Secretary for Resource Conservation. So we are very excited to have another farmer from Queen Anne's County to represent us at the Maryland Department of Ag. So Hans just is going to give us a few words of welcome.
All right, thank you, Jenny. And I've been in this role for about 2.5 months now, and be honest with you, it is quite an eye-opener. You know, when I served for soil conservation and I was state president, you know, I kind of thought I knew a lot, and I'm really, now being in the role that I'm in right now, I realized I only saw the surface, and now I start to see all the working parts. And it's a busy time, as you know, legislative session's in gear right now, and they've had some bills, or a bill with focused on the litter, focus on the chicken litter, and making sure that trying to put the ownership of the litter into the integrator's hands. And the department has been opposed to this bill, and this week it was more of a bloodbath in testimony between the sponsors and the Department of Agriculture. But we're certainly hoping that bill is going to be go down in defeat, and so I think that's going to be good for agriculture. There were a couple things I was asked to kind of talk about. One, I think you saw some press releases. We had a record setting year with cover crop, and Queen Anne's County, I think, was #1 in the state, and I want to thank you all for that. The cover crops really do help agriculture as we're working towards our WIP plans, our watershed implementation plans, trying to reach our water quality goals. And you know, we're actually above where we've met our 2017 goals. In fact, I think we're pretty close to meeting our 2025 goals on cover crops. So I want to thank you, and it's a very popular program, and it's a program that we'll continue to support. Right now, and I'm sure Howard's probably going to talk about when he comes up, right now is the filling in your AIR reports. It's important that you do fill in that information, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. One of the things that the department has been, actually my boss just came in, so I'm not sure if he wants me to talk. He's hiding back there. Keep it up. I'll leave some remarks for him.
Okay. I want to see how well you
I did want to, I'll go back to the AIR and PMT, because one of the requirements in the in the regs are that the department is supposed to be compiling all the soil P data across the state. And you know, when the PMT was put into regs, you know, it was based off some assumptions, it was based off, you know, some calculations and so forth. And you know, once the reg came into place, one of the requirements was that we collect this soil P data. And I just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on the findings that we're getting out of that. To date, we've collected about, or compiled about 850,000 acres across the state. And out of that 850,000 acres, 82% of those acres show a P level of less than 150, which means that those acres are not impacted by the PMT. We also see, when you look at the phosphorus levels over 500 FIV, which are the soils that you cannot apply litter or you cannot apply any additional phosphorus, we're only looking at about 1.1% of those acres across the state. And I can say here in Queen Anne's County, you're just about 0.1% of the acres here in Queen Anne's County where you see your soils above 500. So I think what that data shows us is that, you know, the assumptions that high phosphorus soils is not what was originally assumed. In addition to that, and I've been asked about, you know, the importance of filling out your AIR reports and so forth. One of the data that we have taken out of that report to use in our testimonies to the legislative session, particularly this week when we were testifying against the Poultry Litter Management Act or bill, was that we were looking at your information that you sent in on the amount of litter that came out of the poultry houses. And when you look at that information and you compare it to where the P data, soils data were showing, we're actually showing, I'm using 2014 data because that's the latest data that we have as far as the crust outs and the clean outs, because right now you're currently filling in your 15 data. But we're showing that out of the fields that are less than 150 and out of the litter that's been taken out of the houses, that litter is only going to cover about 1/3 of the ground here on the Eastern Shore, just the Eastern Shore. So the assumptions that there's this excess litter is not true. That we have plenty of ground, plenty of land to apply the litter. It's the most efficient way. So my other point is, it is important that you fill out this data. It's much easier for us, for Joe and myself, when we're testifying, that we have real data, that we're not based off assumptions. So I encourage you, I ask you to please continue to fill out that data. I think to date, Queen Anne's County has, we've gotten about 90% of the P data in so far. And you're one of the higher counties in the state. Of course, that's right. So the only other, I guess that's about all I have. I mean, some of the other things that we're doing with the PMT, we had an advisory committee that was put together. Some of you may be on that. It's farmers, some legislators, some environmental groups, and so forth. And again, when the PMT was enacted, it was a collaborative group working together, not to try to butt heads, but working together. And this advisory committee was put together so to give advice and some recommendations to the department. So that was put together. We're doing an on-farm economic study with the PMT. We've got 8 farms in that study, 4 on the lower shore with using poultry litter. We have 4 in western Frederick and Carroll County who use dairy. It's a 2-year study. We've just gone through 1 year. We just collected that data. We'll have a 2nd year to go through, and hopefully that information is going to give the department much better guidance, you know, and any recommendations or changes that we need to make. And then I guess the last thing, we're also looking at some on-farm alternative uses for litter, and we've got a couple projects right now that we're funding. Those projects are, and we're also looking at some other proposals. So there's a lot going on, and I think that's about it. So.
Good, Hans. Good. All right. Thanks, Hans. Thank you, Hans. We're very proud of Hans. He's doing a really good job. Our Secretary of Ag, Joe Bartenfelder, took a few minutes out of his day. He's going to be here for a few minutes, got to leave, but he'll be back for lunch, so you can chat with him later. You'll be here before. Oh, you're not after lunch? Oh, you want to eat lunch with us? Oh, good. Okay, good. All right, he is going to eat lunch with us. Good. But anyway, so we've been in Annapolis for the last couple days, and I'll tell you what, when I heard him speak, he is very passionate. And when he talked to the senators and the delegates, and we were working on the Poultry Litter Act, he did an excellent job, and we are very lucky, certainly, to have him representing us as agriculture. So, Secretary?
Thanks, Jenny. When I look out here in this room, this is the kind of room that I would like to see behind me when we're testifying in the Senate or in the House. And I hope and you don't have to come up and testify or anything like that. But when the word comes out to you, just come up and sign up so that when those folks look out there, they see you. And you don't have to come up dressed in a suit or anything like that. Come up just like you are, because that's who we are. And they need to see that, and they need to see who this legislation is going to affect. So with that being said, Queen Anne's County, yeah, you're so high in your reporting and everything because of the collaboration of the leadership that you have from the University of Maryland. There you go, I plugged you, Jenny. Thank you. And Hans seen me come in, and I always like to see how he does, you know, being new and giving out the information and stuff like that. So I was standing in the back, and you know, I noticed that you said, you know, well, I'm not going to keep talking because you know, I'm using up a lot of the points that I know Joe wants to say. So I'm not going to keep talking about what he's going to talk about. But then did you notice he kept going and going and going. And I leaned over to Jenny and I said, you know, Hans said that he wasn't going to keep talking and covering all the points I was going to say. I said, but he is. And the other thing, he was new on the job. He comes up to Annapolis, and you know, unless I have to go in before the General Assembly, I'm usually dressed pretty moderately, you know, to say the least, you know, like he is. Well, he comes in on the job up there, and he's dressed in a suit and tie and all that. And I said, Hans, what are you trying to do? Show me up or something? You know, coming in here. So today I had to dress in the shirt and tie and everything because of some other events. And, you know, I come in, and he's got the casual suit on. So, but, yeah, it's Casual Friday. But one thing, Hans is doing a good job for all of us. He talked about that excess and how it's defined. And, you know, I whispered in Jenny's ear when I came in the back, I said, how did that ever get defined before? You know, that kind of, I think it really ended up putting us in this situation and mess that we're in. Because now, when I'm going, whether it's delegates or senators or an environmental group or whoever, when I'm going there and trying to explain what the facts are, people look at me like we're cooking the numbers or something. And we're not cooking any numbers. You know, and I told them, the facts are what they are, you know. And, you know, you always said you wanted the facts, you wanted the science. Well, we're giving you the facts, you know, and you have to accept them for what they are. And, you know, so that's the way we're working on things, and that's the way we're going to move forward with everything. That poultry litter management bill, let me just say this about that, and I'll shut up because Paul Miles came in and he wants to talk baseball. The poultry litter management bill, the whole PMT, to me, the way it was structured, everybody here, you have a farm, but you have a business model that you follow. Well, right at the top of the business model for the PMT was let's just say manure, because everything so far it's been called poultry manure. But there's other manure in the state too, you know, and part of it, and that's why we're running trials in 2 different areas, poultry manure and dairy manure. So the whole structure of the PMT has manure as a value because that's what it is. Right now it's a value because it's used as a nutrient source to spread on the fields. But one of the promises that farmers were given through that negotiation process that I talked about, where there was a lot of goodwill put out there, was that if they couldn't use it in the future, if it wasn't there as a value for them to have as a fertilizer, then there was going to be a market for them, that there would be a value in it that they would get to make up for that lost revenue source. Well, this poultry litter management bill, what it does, it takes that value away because it transfers ownership of the manure, at least the poultry manure, to the poultry integrator. And that's only 6 months after we've implemented the PMT and we're working into it. Everybody knew the rules of the game going in. We had a manure transport program, so don't change the rules of the game now. You know, the farmers followed for years what they were told they could do with manure or fertilizer, and that was you didn't have to worry about phosphorus, you could bank it, it didn't move and all that. We did what we were told we were supposed to do. So then when that science changed, when we knew better, you know, the manure transport program helped to move that around. So now after those negotiations and after, you know, the PMT was worked out and that was negotiated, then you come in with this bill and, you know, it changes the rules of the game, and that's why I felt compelled to testify against it and lay that out. So with that being said, you know, I was able to be here last year and see everybody. I plan on being here every year to see everybody while I'm secretary. We have a governor who's supportive of agriculture here in this state, and we're fortunate for that. To be honest with everybody, I was really planning on, I call it staying home on the shore today, because I was going to go from here to North Carolina for an announcement down there for their FFA program, and then I was jumping back to here, and then my plan was to jump back down to Preston and then go to the Caroline County Farm Bureau dinner tonight right there at Preston Volunteer Fire Hall, where I knew I'd be close to home, could have a couple buds, and then make it right back to the farm. But the governor's doing a tour of St. Mary's County today, and they originally asked me if I could join the governor in St. Mary's County, and I said, well, no, my schedule already had it that I was going to be on the shore and I was going to be going to Caroline County Farm Bureau dinner, but I'll send the deputy secretary to join the governor in St. Mary's County. And I got the message back, you really probably don't understand, the governor really would like you to join him in St. Mary's County. So when I'm finished here after lunch, I'm going to be leaving to go to St. Mary's County, and I'll make it back, you know, make it back later. So for some reason, I missed Caroline County's Farm Bureau dinner 2 years in a row, but next year I'll make it. So my daughter and son-in-law, they're going there. So with that, it's good to be here. Good seeing everybody. And like I said, I'll be back later this morning.
So I just want to follow up on a couple comments of our secretary. You know that some of the senators and the delegates and the people in Annapolis, they really think that we take our trucks and we take poultry manure and we dump it into the streams and the rivers. They think that when they see piles of chicken manure in the field, they think that's excess manure. They don't understand that that's going to be spread in that field. So we have a lot of education to do. It's amazing. So anyway, but like I said, if you'd like to come to Annapolis, sure it's a real eye-opener. And Joe Branham, I put a message out on Facebook. We needed some farmers to come. He came and brought his daughter, and I think that it was probably a real eye-opener for her.